can see, I was able to tinker around with the trigger a little bit more and get that trigger pull down lighter. I got it from where it was shooting 1 pound 14 ounce trigger pull down to 1 pound 4 ounce trigger pull. Any slight adjustment beyond that to get it even lighter, I was able to get it down to 1 pound exactly, but it shoots very unpredictably as far as the first stage goes. Sometimes the first stage is there, sometimes it isn't. It just fires. And I wanted a very well-defined first stage portion to the trigger pull, and leaving it at 1 pound 4 ounces would give me that. It's very, very consistent, very crisp, comes back to the same point every time with the first stage. And of course 1 pound 4 ounces is pretty light trigger pull, so I'm pretty happy with that, able to get it down from the 1 pound 14 ounces. The other thing was I did get in the 177 magazine that's actually for a Hudson Bowmaster from Field Supply, that's made out of aluminum. There is a much, much better loading experience with that particular magazine versus the plastic. Even over the plastic one that I have, that I really haven't had any issues with any pellets up to this point. It just feeds much smoother with this metal magazine. So, and like I said, for whatever reason, Field Supply charges even less for the metal magazine than they do for the plastic magazine. And Field Supply is cheaper regardless of what you're buying over Pyramid Hill. So, as long as they're in stock, I would certainly recommend trying out one of these metal magazines for the Hudson Bowmaster. It does work perfectly fine in the Hudson Flash Pup. I'm a little bit surprised by some of the things. I thought I would come down here without any concentrating on pulling pellets out and getting a penetration amount from each pellet or an expansion of each pellet. I've just been kind of taking a couple of the pellets that came in of each type that I most recently put an order for. And as far as accuracy, one thing I see that seems to be very consistent with this particular gun and the way that I have it tuned, shooting at as high of a velocity as it is shooting at, it definitely likes the heavier pellets. You get down in the 7 to 7.5 grain range. Really, almost anything under 8 grain does not seem to be very consistent accuracy-wise. The heavier the pellet, the better accuracy. There is one particular type of pellet that is just shooting hole in hole that this particular gun seems to really like. But I will get to that more when I get more in-depth with the pellet testing. So let's get into some pellet testing with the Flash Pup in 177 caliber. I'm going to start off with the 3 from my most recent pellet purchase that I consider to be budget-friendly pellets. The first one is the Winchesters in 177 caliber. I posted up the weight of these into the introduction for the video. We also have some Excite Spike pellets. These are pointed 177 caliber pellets, and the Excite Hammer, which are just a domed version. The Excite pellets are made by H&N. They are cost-wise much more budget-friendly than other H&N pellets, but we'll see. I'm not going to focus so much on getting velocities for these pellets. It's really apples and oranges as far as weight coming in and playing a big part in what kind of velocity numbers these pellets are going to shoot. I have already shot pellets within the same general weight range that these pellets come in at, and I know what the gun is capable of doing velocity-wise. What I'm more interested in seeing is the accuracy of the pellet. And again, this is just at 10 meters down here in my basement. The other thing is penetration and deformation. As far as penetration, I'm going to be shooting again at a textbook that I have. I'm not going to count the pages that each particular pellet has penetrated. I'm simply going to concentrate on which one penetrates the most, which one penetrates the second most, and which one penetrates the least. And try to dig them out and get some deformation. I think I'll be taking 3 shots with each pellet. That said, let's get into shooting. The important part. We'll start off first shooting the Winchesters. I'm going to be shooting at the middle targets, 2nd down, 3rd down, and 4th down from the top. The Winchesters will be 2nd down from the top. Next up will be the Excite Spike pellets, the pointed pellets. Lastly, we'll be shooting the Excite Hammer domed pellets. So as far as deformation goes, what I was able to pull out of the book from the Winchesters really fragmented. It looks like the skirt of the pellet is what's mainly left, but there was some major deformation. Some major deformation from the Excite spikes. And what I would say is the least deformation, but still pretty good deformation from the hammers. I think I would have to give the nod to the Winchesters. They really deform the most. Let's just put it that way. But as far as just sheer number of pages and penetration, the pellet that penetrated by far, actually the most, was the Excite Spike pellet. The pointed pellet by far penetrated the most. The one that came in second as far as penetration were the Excite hammers. Third was the Winchester, but that kind of makes sense when you look at the deformation and the fragmentation that's coming from that particular pellet. It seems to really be spreading out and breaking off into different pieces. Probably pretty early in the penetration process. Most was the Excite Spike. next was the Excite Hammer, and next was the Winchesters. Now, if we get into accuracy, I was extremely surprised by what I just saw, because it did not coincide with some shooting that I've done with these pellets previous to this filming of this test. The largest deviation center to center was the Winchesters. These were the Excite spike pointed pellets. And what was by far the most, and I was able to adjust and get one dead center, was the Excite Hammer dome pellets. So I would give, as far as accuracy down here at 10 meters, definitely the nod to the Excite Hammers. Now, what I saw previously in shooting these pellets prior to filming this was a significant accuracy performance from the Excite spikes, which are by far the heaviest of these three pellets. As I said, as far as the way that the gun is tuned, there's nothing really to brag about, accuracy-wise, from any of these pellets. But what I had noticed shooting them before was the heavier the pellet got, it seemed like it coincided with better accuracy. The gun is tuned to shoot very fast, and really, in general, does not seem to like light pellets, which I would include pretty much all of these. Although, as I said, the spikes are the heaviest by far out of these three pellets, and I expected that to be the most accurate pellet. But the hammers pleasantly surprised me as far as this test goes, and how the gun shot them at this particular moment. As far as this gun and these pellets go, as far as just trying to punch paper, trying to get pellets down range and season the barrel, any of these pellets would work. As far as doing some accurate shooting, pretty much none of these pellets would work. Probably the gun could be tuned to shoot all of these much better, I would summarize. It would have to be tuned velocity-wise way down to shoot much slower. And this is by no means an indication of how these pellets would perform out of a different gun. So maybe at some point in the future, that will be something I will be doing. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I do have a Crosman 1377 I could shoot these out of. I have a Crosman M4 177 I could shoot these out of, and these may be more in line with shooting better out of a slower velocity producing gun. But for the time being, and concentrating on what shoots well, trying to find something that shoots well out of the Hatsan Flash Pup in 177. In this particular case, the best accuracy-wise was the hammer. Deformation-wise was the Winchester, and penetration-wise was the spike. So each pellet performed exceptionally well in one of the three categories: deformation, penetration, and accuracy. So the next video will be on some little bit more pricier 177 pellets that were a part of this purchase order. Guys, thanks for checking this one out. Shoot straight and stay safe.